Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's nice to see you here. So I'd like to start by speaking a little bit about the title that I chose for this masterclass. 3 key qualities to awakening to a soul-guided life. I'm going to start with the last part of it, the soul-guided life, and why would one want to align with the soul-guided life? No doubt you all have a sense of that. Maybe it's a strong sense or an impending sense, something that's coming stronger and stronger through you that you're recognizing. And you may not call it a soul-guided life. You may call it an authentic life or a life that is true. The way that I use the word soul is essentially the soul is an individuated, a unique expression of spirit that expresses through each one of us. It expresses through a tree, it expresses through people, animals, essentially everything is an expression of soul. And yet the fabric that is the foundation of all of these things is the same for all of us. It's pure spirit. One of the analogies that came to me the other day as I was playing with my grandkids is they have this machine that you put Play-Doh through it, but there's all these different shapes that you can slide this kind of ruler along and it comes out as different shapes. So spirit is the Play-Doh. You know, we're all made of this spirit, and the different shapes is the soul, is the expression it's just coming out in a certain way. And generally we realize at some point in our deepening that we are the way that we are. We've got the gifts and the qualities and the interests that we have. We even chose our parents and our situations because of the lessons that were interesting to us as souls that we were ready to explore here on this planet. And each one of us is unique in that. And I do believe that each one of us also fits into this gigantic puzzle that is the universe. And if any one of us were missing, there would be a gap. And so, yes, it is important that we discover and uncover and express what it is that our soul wants to offer here to life. And a lot of us come to this maybe through realizing that we've lived our lives according to what culture, society, our families, our parents are telling us are important for a successful life. And we realize that it's not enough, or that it's impossible to achieve, or it's not interesting to achieve. And there's this sense of there's got to be something more. And there is. So that's the soul-guided life. And then another word that I used in the title was awakening to our soul-guided life. So this word is really important because in a sense, you could say that the soul is already here. In fact, it's already guiding us, but we're asleep to that fact, or we're half asleep to that fact. So aligning with the soul's momentum is more like an awakening, sort of like we awaken from a dream of separation, a dream of our conditioned beliefs about how life is supposed to be. We awaken from that. Sometimes it's suddenly, and sometimes it's very gradually. But that is the process of slowly but surely coming more and more firmly rooted in a life that is a true expression of our inner being. And then there's 3 key qualities. So there's a certain, I've worked with many souls, probably obviously most intimately with my own soul. And I remember awakening to my soul-guided life in a conscious way the first time when I held my first child, and I saw the light of soul, the light of spirit, pure coming through his eyes. And I realized that I had lost touch with that in myself. And maybe it's not absolutely true to say that I had never connected to that, because as I'm speaking, I'm remembering as a child being quite interested in these types of things. And then somehow it all went dormant in my teenage years. But it was when I held my first child and recognized that I had lost touch with it, that really sparked in me. And of course, as when my other child came into the world as well, and as I began to explore myself more deeply, and put myself in a world that was more spiritually oriented and soul oriented, I began to meet people who were living from this really true place. And that too moved me very much, often to tears. And so it was sparking this desire here that's always been there, but again, got covered up through the way that I was conditioned to live my life. So as I've worked with many people through my own experience, learning what the key qualities were to develop and how it is that we can do that, both through the soul coach training as well as one-on-one, there are certain qualities that have risen to the surface as being really crucial, really key, in fact, to awakening to our soul-guided life. And so that's what I would like to explore this evening, and also underscore that these qualities already exist in all of us, but sometimes they go somewhat dormant as we focus our attention on things that are maybe more related to our mundane life, or to kind of dealing with the challenges that we perceive in our lives. And so a lot of attention can go towards micromanaging our human lives. And one of the things that I would like to really express this evening is how important it is, and how beneficial and effective really it is to focus in on the soul's expression as the ultimate quote unquote solution for our human problems. That's certainly what I found, and what many others who have endeavored to align with their soul have found as well. So the first quality that I've identified, and this would actually, you could call it the master key, is a single-minded focus on aligning with a soul-guided life. A lot of times what I find is that many people say that they want that, they want an authentic life, but they're somewhat fickle when challenges come along, or when a challenging emotion shows up, they move into trying to fix those things, trying to find solutions, and they've just lost contact with the soul. So it's so important that we make this alignment with our deepest self the most important thing, moment to moment to moment. A lot of times we negotiate with ourselves. I just have to solve this first. I have to give my opinion first. I have to make this person wrong first. And then I will go back to that, maybe in an unconscious way. But what I think is very, very important is to connect with that place in us more and more deeply and more steadfastly, so that we're leaving it less and less. Of course, most of us don't kind of decide we're going to live a soul-guided life and then jump right in and never, get caught in our conditioning and our ego. That doesn't happen for most of us. But when we connect to this heartfelt and being felt desire that takes the priority moment to moment to moment, this is the rudder that's going to steer your ship. This is your North Star. And the thing about this is that no one can actually give it to you, but certain things can spark it in you. As I mentioned earlier, when my first child was born, later my second, and that really deepened my commitment to a soul-guided life. Oftentimes when I got interested in meditation and I was meeting some of the beautiful teachers that came my way, that too often it was like it would feed that fire. So putting ourselves around, consciously surrounding ourselves with people who are also interested in living authentic lives and reading all the wonderful books that are out there, not all of them, of course, but, letting yourself be drawn intuitively to the books that might feed that fire is really important. And I'm sure you're all doing that already, but I just want to underscore that that is a key thing, is exposing ourselves to other people and maybe people who are slightly ahead of us on the path. For me, anyways, that sparks a lot. So I'm often listening to podcasts and doing retreats with spiritual teachers, and usually have at least one book on the go beside my bed. And I really enjoy it. It nourishes me, it nourishes my being, and it inspires me, and gives a sense of creativity to this soul-guided life. Because, as we all know, when we go out there in the world, there's not a lot of encouragement to live in this way. And so the more that we can surround ourselves with this and immerse ourselves in longer retreats is wonderful for this as well, because we leave behind the conditioning for long enough to really break those patterns. So that's something, maybe for another talk, but I just really wanted to underscore that the first thing is to recognize this heartfelt desire to live from this deep place. And oftentimes what will happen is, and many of us probably have, I'm sure we wouldn't be here otherwise, we've had sparks of it, we've had tastes of it, we've kind of recognized that light and that freedom and that love and that aliveness that comes from connecting to that place in us. And it may just be a flash, but that's enough to hook us in a way. And so oftentimes, once we've felt it, the ego will kind of hijack the whole thing and say, well, how can I make that happen again? How can I make that feeling happen? What can I get? What do I need to do? What practices? And these are all good questions, but I don't think it's the most important thing to do once we have connected to that inner longing to connect with it, to our deepest self. What it is if you just bring yourself within your own body right now and you feel that fire in your heart, that desire to fulfill what it is that your soul came here to do, you can feel perhaps its location in the center of your chest, or maybe for you it's somewhere else, but for many people it's in the heart area. And it may in fact feel like a fire or like a brightness or a sweetness. There could be certain qualities to it: kindness, love, joy. So rather than going out there to find the soul-guided life, one of the most powerful practices is to continually turn back towards the source of that longing. So we turn the antenna this way and we let ourselves really bathe in that. It's like a bubbling well and nourishing water. I know I'm mixing my metaphors with the fire and the water, but there's that quality to it. It can also have kind of like a nectar, a sweetness type of quality. And so to wake up in the morning and to turn inwards and to connect with that longing, our greatest longing. And sometimes to call it, oh, I'm longing for a soul-guided life, might seem a little bit not palpable enough. So one of the things that we do in Soul Coach training, the very first class, is we identify what our greatest aspiration is. And for many people, that's peace or love or harmony. And that too can bring us back to the place of the soul, because when we speak about greatest aspiration, we're not going to be talking about a Mercedes Benz or a vacation. And we're going to be talking about those things that are really meaningful. And then to notice where that lives in your body and to visit it often, because the more that we visit it, it becomes nourished by our attention, by our presence. And then it in turn nourishes us. So the first key quality is connecting to a single-minded desire, longing to connect with who it is that we are, what it is that we're here to express. And even if that's faint at first, it's about turning towards that. And again, remembering that this, I'm not asking you to do something you haven't done. We have all had a moment in our life, and maybe more than a moment, where that has been alive in us, maybe reading a particular book or being with a particular teacher. So nurture that, the feeling. Don't worry too much about how it's going to unfold, because that's the mind coming in. That's the ego trying to grab a hold of something precious and make it its own and have its ideas about what it's going to look like. So turn back inwards to the sensation, the feeling, maybe the images, the colors, all of that. And actually, that's the only key that you need. I will give you two more, but that's the only one that you need. Once you're in touch with that, and I know you are already, I really just want to encourage you to spend time with it. It's like any relationship. If you want a relationship with a partner or a child or a pet, or even a plant, anything really, to thrive, we need to spend time with it in an open state, in a receptive state, where we're not imposing our ideas of how that relationship is supposed to be, but we're listening to hear what that relationship wants to be. And it's like that with our soul. So we may have no idea what we're doing when we're turning our attention to our heart, but to just come here and to sit in stillness, in silence, without any ideas about what it's supposed to be, and then let it come forth from there. The second quality that I wanted to speak about is humility. And it may not be the same humility that you're used to hearing about, or maybe the way that you imagine humility to be, or what you think it might look like. What I mean by humility in terms of a key quality for awakening to a soul-guided life is a willingness to not know what it's going to look like. And even beyond that, a willingness to let go of any concepts whatsoever. Because as soon as you know something, you are in your conditioning. You are in your ego. As soon as you think you know how something is supposed to be, or how something is supposed to become, or what something was supposed to be, you are in your conditioning, you're in your ego, you're in fear, actually. So humility means that we enter into our moments, and of course they all string together, with a willingness to not know. With a willingness even to let ourselves consider that this moment may just be exactly as it needs to be. So much of our energy, so much, maybe a lot, all of our energy for some of us is spent arguing with this moment, with what I'm feeling in my body, with what's happening in my life, with what so-and-so is doing. So much energy is spent in in conflict, really, in separation from ourselves and from this moment. So humility is a willingness to consider that this moment may just be exactly as it needs to be, that this moment is an answer to my soul's prayer for awakening, that this moment has so much to give me if I were just stop thinking about it and evaluating it and just be in it. So this humility that I'm speaking of recognizes that there is something here far greater than ourselves, but at the same time integral to who we are. That is, some people have used the word orchestrating, that there's a great harmony that's happening in this moment in your life and in the universe that is balanced, considering all the various pieces. And sometimes it doesn't seem that way when there's wars and there's pain and there's disease. But I like that line in Desiderata where it says, you know, even though you don't understand, the universe is unfolding as it should. And that this great mystery that has created stars and puppy dogs and majestic trees and mangoes and you, that this majestic being that has created this incredible intricacy, and beyond that, that doesn't even begin to express it, how everything just works together and gravity keeps our feet on the ground and the sun is just the right temperature, and you could go on, that you know better than that beautiful force that is giving us this opportunity to express ourselves as spiritual beings in physical form. So a sense of humility, a sense of, I don't know. And is that a scary thing to say? Yes, to the ego, it definitely is, because the ego is invested in knowing. It gives it a false sense of safety. But if you're really honest with yourself, has knowing really helped you in your life? Has thinking you know really helped you in your life? Or has it created suffering? Has it created disconnection in your relationships when you think you know what this person is going to respond or what they're going to do or what they should be doing? When you think you know that this war shouldn't be happening and it is, that's just a recipe for suffering and a perfect formula for just a life of constant struggle. So the humility to consider that this moment in the context of all things is exactly what this moment needs to be. That everything that is showing up in this moment in my being is here to help me to express what it is that I'm here for. You know, it's no small feat for a soul, which is endless, to find its way to a human life. I've heard some people say that souls are just clamoring to come into a human life because there's so much joy in expressing and there's so much learning to be done and so much growth to be done in a human body. And it's not to say that it's not painful at times, but when we begin to understand that the challenges are all here for us, not against us, this can liberate so much of the energy that's being spent in struggle to energy that is being liberated as rocket fuel for your soul. So that humility to say, I don't know. And at some point, it actually becomes very freeing to admit to ourselves, I don't know. And the main reason for that is because it's true, because we don't know. We don't know. We're too limited as human beings to know how everything should be. So that's the second quality, is humility. And the beauty of that quality is that that humility puts us in our hearts. Because when we live in, I don't know, it creates this great sense of openness. We're not needing to constantly, this is good, this is bad, I want this, I don't want that, you should, you shouldn't. There's none of that needing to go on because we're just open. And so when we're open, there's this natural courage that comes through. A natural courage that comes through. Actually, you could say that openness, in a way, is equivalent to courage. Courage comes from the word cœur, meaning someone that has an open heart, someone that is living from their heart, someone that doesn't see limitations, right? And this humility creates this sense of openness, which puts us directly in touch with our natural capacity for courage. And why is that important on a soul-guided life? In a soul-guided life? Because the things that we are going to encounter as a part of our lives are going to require courage to squarely face them. They are going to require an open heart, to stand in our own two shoes, as the Buddhists say, to take the one seat which is ours, and to open to the life that we have co-created. Because as we all know, life has much beauty and it has much challenge. And it takes courage to open to the challenges that have come into our unique lives. It takes courage to not turn away, to not blame, to not constantly try to micromanage our issues. It takes courage to actually feel the emotions that will necessarily arise when we move from living in our minds to living in our hearts. The heart is our emotional center. And so as we learn to live with more and more humility, as our heart opens, all of those feelings that were shut down in the process of separating ourselves from life are going to come to the surface. It takes courage to live a life where you're as willing to greet the beauty as you are to greet the challenges. You're as willing, actually the better way to say it would be to greet the challenges as you are to welcome in the beauty. That's courage. So in a soul-guided life, and those of you who have taken the Soul Coach training program, you know there's a lot of emphasis on creating a welcoming space for all of the emotions, feelings, and ultimately they're all energies that are going to liberate themselves as a result of living with more and more openness. It's just part of it. And so when we let go of what we imagine living a soul-guided life might be, we might think, oh, it's gonna, if I'm on a soul-guided path, it's all going to be, smooth and fun and harmonious and peaceful. And that isn't the truth at all. So one of the things that it takes courage to do as well is to recognize and acknowledge and embody the fact that a soul-guided life doesn't look like anything in particular. So that's going up to the mind and imagining things. So a soul-guided life doesn't look like a body that's free from pain or disease. It doesn't look like marriages that last forever. It doesn't look like children who don't get cancer. A soul-guided life can look like anything. In fact, it looks like your life exactly as it is right now. So it takes courage to just settle in the midst of your precious life, your precious moment, and to open to the feelings that will begin to arise as you do that. And when you begin to dedicate yourself to this practice of intimacy with the emotional being and a welcoming environment, and allowing all of the emotions to come to the table of your being, number one, this is essential on the soul's path. But number two, you will find that you become lighter and lighter, because everything that has been kind of pushed down and stored in the heart and the rest of the being gets to liberate. And as it does that, as it begins to liberate, one, the energy that was spent pushing those emotions down gets freed up and now rejoins the momentum of the soul. So you'll find that your alignment, your feeling like you're living a more and more authentic life that feels like you will begin to really be a palpable thing. And as you begin to liberate those emotions that you've been suppressing for good reason, it's not wrong that you were doing that. We all suppress the emotions that we've been taught consciously or unconsciously through our parents' behavior, through our culture's behavior, that we've been taught that don't belong, that aren't good, that are bad, that are wrong, that we're made to feel ashamed of. So that's all okay. But all I'm saying here is that when we begin to light up and align with the soul, as it begins to grow, it's going to naturally liberate the shadows. And as it does that, or light up the shadows, and all of these suppressed energies will be liberated, which again will feed the momentum of the soul. And also the being will feel lighter. Certain qualities that were being overshadowed by the suppressed emotions will also become more and more available to you. So, for example, if we suppress anxiety, we also suppress this natural excitement and welcoming and joy of living. If we suppress anger, we also suppress our capacity to set boundaries, also our capacity for gentleness. So when we understand that when we're suppressing certain feelings, we're also suppressing the other end of the spectrum. We can't just selectively suppress the ones that we're afraid of. And so we get to become more emotionally alive. And also we expose certain qualities and capacities that have been perhaps underdeveloped in us because they've been tied up with the suppression of feelings and emotions and energies. So I know for myself, as this process began to happen, many of the things that I enjoy today actually surfaced from that process of liberating emotions. Certain qualities, capacities, even interests that I have came from the soil, I guess you could say, the compost of my old emotional life, that as it began to break down, it fed the new, more soulful life. So it's a very, very essential process, this opening to the suppressed emotions, and also an essential process in revealing the soul-guided life, because it's sitting underneath all of that. So in the Soul Coach training program, and when I work with clients as well, there's a very big emphasis on that. We don't talk too much about the story or the analysis of things, although that can be important. But mostly what we're interested in is, where does that, like if you think about a challenge in your life right now, the most interesting thing is, where does it live in your body? Because it will point directly to where something has been suppressed and where there is latent energy that will eventually feed and nourish the path of the soul. So I want to encourage you to write any questions down in the chat bar, or if you'd like to raise your hand, you're most welcome to do that as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Soul Coach training program that's beginning in, well, exactly a month, actually, exactly 4 weeks from today. I know that some of you who are here have taken it already. Some of you have already signed up, which I'm thrilled about. We have a beautiful group coming together. So the Soul Coach training program began around 5 years ago. I'd already been doing soul coaching for a number of years and felt guided to begin to share it with other people. And soul coaching was born from, well, many, many different things, I think, came into that formula. Probably you could say my whole life came into the formula, and probably it was meant to be born at some point. But certainly my interest in spirituality, yoga, energy. I was an energy worker for quite a number of years. That fed the soul coaching, because I began to realize that energy work could happen without me actually putting my hands on people. And what I was really enjoying was teaching people how to do energy work on themselves so that they wouldn't have to rely on me. I was teaching people to become experts on their own energy field and nurturers of their own energy, keepers of their energy field, and people who became more and more adept, or who are becoming more and more adept at this energetic hygiene, which is essential to soul coaching. Our second course, actually, the second module, is all about energy and energy hygiene. So many things came together to eventually spark me to create the Soul Coach training course. And it was very clear to me the different components that needed to be in it. So you see the 4 modules, and they haven't changed since I first began the program. Certain components have shifted, but the 4 modules, I'm quite clear that they are the steps that guide us towards the soul-guided life, and that create a foundation for that. And the way that I see it, even though the Soul Coach training ultimately can be a course that enables us to eventually coach others in a formal way. So maybe many people who read about the course might think that that is kind of the main intention. And it is definitely a strong intention, because I love hearing that the graduates are doing soul coaching in their practices. They've either created a practice, or they've added it to their nutrition practice, or their Reiki practice, or their yoga classes. I love hearing that those principles are incorporating, because I know that it will create a richer experience for their clients and their participants, and that it teaches people to orient towards this expression of our truest being, which I believe is the only way to create a planet where every being is honored, and every being is I guess you could say, I feel that it's the direct path to peace, to equality, to freedom. And this isn't, obviously many people have said this before me, and the Soul Coach training program is my own way of contributing. And I'm so happy that people have been drawn to it as well. So by all means, that can be one outcome of taking the Soul Coach training. But more than that, and I think in particular the first year, I think people get the most out of it if they see it as a year to create deeper intimacy with their own soul, to learn the path back to their soul, to practice the teachings, to share with each other, to refine our connection with our own soul. Because as I was saying earlier, we just haven't been guided in that way in our regular lives for the most part. And so it's a whole kind of reorienting towards how the system communicates the soul's guidance, and also reverse engineering in a way the conditioned mind and the whole belief system that keeps us caught in the ego. So it's really important, I believe, when we're doing this to do it as a group, to do it with support, and to do it as a commitment. Because yeah, I mean, sure, you can take one class and do a month long or even a weekend retreat, but I feel that doing it through a 10-month process allows you to live your life and then to meet those moments in your life with the principles that you're learning, with the practices that you're learning. Not only that, when you feel called to join the Soul Coach training program, it's likely because your soul is on an accelerated path this year. And it recognizes that it will need that support. It will benefit from that support. And so, I mean, of course, there are teachings and words that will be spoken and principles and all of that. But I think more than anything, it's the energetic holding on my part and on the part of all the other beautiful souls that come together that really allows us to relax into a process. It is essentially already happening. That is essentially already happening. But it can feel like a struggle, and it may still feel like a struggle because, as I mentioned, the whole path may become accelerated as a result of taking this course, but that's only because on some level that you're going to be supported. And so the soul is just, is just excited by the prospect. So the 10-month program allows us to really experience the highs and the so-called lows and the questions and the deepening too, because the principles will become more and more refined. And as you apply them to your life, you'll get to know them for yourself in your own way. And that's really, really important. That is what soul guidance is all about. I'm definitely not making you or wanting to make you carbon copies of myself. I'm wanting you to take the principles, to apply them to your life, to see how they fit in to your experiences, and to deepen in your own individual way. And so the 4 modules, the first one is soul guided meditation. So learning to connect with ourselves and to every part of our being that wants to contribute to our journey is really important. The mind is really dominant in most of us, but there's so many parts of our being: the body, the emotions, the energy, the heart, all the senses. All of these things are part of the language of the soul. And so we'll learn how to attune to those in the meditation module. The second module is about energy. And this is going to help us to refine into the territory of the soul, because energy is the territory of the soul. And as we become more and more tuned to energy, there becomes this natural capacity to kind of sense the yes that is the soul moving us in a particular direction, and the no, which is really the inner guidance that says, no, not that way. This is the way here. And so that kind of refinement, and also it helps us to be more open to all of the the messages and the guidance that come from all around us. The third module is very near and dear to my heart. It's relationships. And once we've learned a lot about energy, we can then enter into relationship in a self-responsible way, where we don't need to change anything outside of ourselves. And we can really use all of our relationships as a mirror for the light that wants to express here, as well as the shadow that wants to be revealed. I love that module very much because I believe that for me, the soul's path has been a way of relationship. And I'm so grateful for the lessons that have been learned that way, and the people that have come along to teach me some very deep lessons that really feel like they have been felt and embodied with every part of my being. And the fourth module is living a soul-guided life. So kind of pulling it all together and completing that 10-month journey in that way. As part of the program too, there are 2 silent retreats, or 2 weekend retreats that are preferably done in silence, and they're done online because we tend to have students from far and wide. And the retreats are very, I believe, helpful because the soul coach trainees are asked to set aside the whole weekend and to create a schedule and an environment in their home where they can follow along with the online teachings, the meditations, and the other components of the retreat. And there's something to immersing ourselves for a longer period of time that is very magical. Often when we meditate, there can be a deepening, right? So you start up here, maybe in your head, and then you sit in meditation, you feel a little bit more connected to your depth. And then often you'll come back out and you'll go back into your life, right? But when we do a longer period of time, there's a deepening, and there's a deepening, and there's a deepening. So the depths that you touch into may be unprecedented, and also they become the new kind of bar, I guess. It sets a new bar of depth. And of course, as you get deeper within yourself, there's more self-knowledge that arises from that, and more unfolding. So that's the retreat part. And then there's also mentorship circles with Olia Kamenko, who is a senior soul coach that did the first year with me, and we've known each other for many years, and she's a beautiful teacher, and I love that she approaches it in a little bit of a different way than me, of course, and that's again, how this expresses uniquely from each one of us. And so those mentorship circles will be an opportunity to practice transparent communication, which is the way to communicate from the soul, and to learn to listen as well from that place. So the soul listens not just with its ears, it listens with the whole being. The body is kind of the ears of the soul. And so we learn how to do that in community. There's other components too. I don't think I need to go into all of them. You can read that on our webpage. And yeah, let me see if there's anything else that I would like to say. I don't see any questions coming up, and I don't see any hands up. If anybody who's taken the program would like to express anything, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I'd love to hear from you. And let me just see here if there's anything else that I would like to say. I hope I haven't intimidated you. I can be very intimidating. Okay, great. Thanks, Pamela. So I'll recap the keys. So the first one is is an uncompromising commitment to the soul, which, as I mentioned, is really grace. It's grace that just brings that in and helps you to connect with it. But once you've had just one taste, really important to nurture that. And the second one is humility. And the humility opens you to the courage that it takes to face your life squarely, just as it is, to not turn away from all the precious parts of your life. And it's not easy. You know, I was just on a walk today, and it's interesting. When I'm in the forest, I find I'm assuming because of the purity of the forest, and also I'm currently leading a month-long retreat with some beautiful souls here at Clear Being. And so there's a lot of energy moving through for sure as we all learn and grow together. But as I was walking through the forest, there was this really uncomfortable feeling of, how could I call it? Like superiority. And it's not something that I feel often in my life. I mean, I have in the past, and what I realized as I was walking today as it came forth, first of all, it's nauseating. It's just not a nice feeling. But also I could clearly see that it sits right on top of a lack of self-worth. It was just so clear. So, you know, and so what I'm trying to say with this little story is that it just continues, this clarifying and the seeing of the details just continues. And I could see myself kind of leaving, not really wanting to be with the discomfort of that feeling. So what I did is I actually sat down. I felt that it would be easier. I sat on a log and I took a moment to just sort of feel where that feeling was living in my body. And, you know, I have encountered it before, but what I notice is that there's just, it's almost like the rootlets get pulled out, or it's also very possible that my being wants to kind of bring this one forth because it was important for me to, in order to deliver what I wanted to deliver this evening, perhaps that's something that needed to clarify a little bit. I don't know. I don't generally try to explain these things, except that I know everything happens for me, as I mentioned earlier. But that's something that kind of moved through me today. And yeah, my mind might have said, well, I don't want this right now. I just want to relax. But that's the ego coming in. That's the conditioning. And actually, it's less relaxing to resist what's actually here to be seen than it is to just open. Opening is the most relaxing thing, even though when you open, some of the things that come forth might be uncomfortable and your mind might have a few things to say about it. Yeah. Sorry. So the third key is courage. Courage. Yeah. The courage to face your life just as it is. Clarity is a great key too, but I would say that clarity comes through courage, I feel. You know, just like when I said today, when this feeling of superiority came forth, the courage that it took me to just sit down on a log and to be with it gave me that clarity. This is sitting right on top of a lack of self-worth, which has definitely been an issue in my life, less and less as I've done this work. So it felt like it was perhaps a little remnant of that. Okay, I see we have questions coming in. So Brittany, the course will allow us to provide energy support and intuitive guidance through verbal. Is there also physical support through meditations and smudging or related to that? I love that. Yeah, that's a great question. So pretty much every soul coaching class that I teach, every soul coaching session that I do begins with a meditation. So yes, you will become experts at leading meditations in a very authentic way, where you connect energetically to this being in front of you and you allow the words to come through. And it's just so delightful to essentially you know, say the same thing over and over again, but in many, many different ways that are uniquely specific to the person in front of you. The smudging, you know, we're all building our toolboxes, right? So if smudging is something that really resonates for you, then of course, include that in your soul coaching sessions. We have some that are doing singing bowls, some that are doing Reiki and soul coaching, some that are doing one-on-one yoga and soul coaching, some that are doing breath work and soul coaching. So it's meant to really be the foundation. And many soul coaches have told me that no matter what they learn, shamanism or whatever, the soul coaching helps them to enter into those experiences with the fullness of their being, to get the most out of it possible from the fullness of their being, and then to integrate it in a way that feels authentic. I hope that answers your question, Brittany. Yes. So will we have access to the teachings after the 10 months? Yes, you will. You have them for life, or as long as Clear Being is around, as long as the website is around, which I hope is for the rest of my life. I plan on being around here at Clear Being till I'm 120. So yes, you'll have them forever. They're going to be on the website. There's an account there, and all of the courses that you've taken get posted there, and you have access to them forever. The other thing too is, as soon as you sign up, you get access to that account, and you will get a bunch of, I think, really wonderful courses. I shouldn't really say that because I taught them. They're soul coach primers on addictions and on effortless self-care and on healing the body the soul's way. So these are all things that you can listen to, you know, in the time as you wait for the course to start, or in the summertime. There's between July and August, there's no modules being taught. So that's another good time to do those courses. So great. Yes, so Anna's asking if we meet in person at all, or is the soul coaching all done virtually? Yes, because there are people that are far away. I don't want to exclude them. I mean, of course, I'd love to see the soul coaches who are in the area as often as possible here at Clear Being. And you're most welcome to come to some of the fire ceremonies that we have, or some of the day retreats, any of the offerings that we have at Clear Being, you're most welcome. But in terms of any of the course material being done in person here, no, for the benefit of those people who are taking it from far away. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that I don't think we've changed this on the website, but there was initially a discount for $200 if you signed up before. I can't remember the date, but we're going to extend that to, let's say, February 12th, which is this coming Sunday. So that gives those of you who would like to book a discovery call with myself in the next week to do so. And also, if you need to reflect on it, talk to your family about it, it gives you some time. But I'll have Jen extend that discount up until the 12th of February. And also, you know, if you need to discuss anything around the financial part of things, we're happy to do that as well. I always say that if you're drawn to this course, if your heart is really set on it and it's challenging for you financially right now, we can help out with that by spreading things out, or we do have scholarships available as well. Great, thank you. It's really nice to have you all here with me tonight, and really appreciate your presence. And I wish you a wonderful evening. I hope to see you soon, and blessings on your evening. Thanks, everyone. Bye. You're welcome. You're very welcome.